Okay, so now that you know about data structures, you need to know that they don't behave the same way as the other data types that we've used in the past. So I've got an example here that I'm going to go through with you. So in this example, I've got a variable first and it's got a value of 0, so it's got an integer value. So when I try to give this to a module or a function, or I try to swap its value, like in this example, you're going to see that every time I do anything with it, it's just copied. The value that's in the variable is copied. That is not the case of what we just learned about with data structures, and you're going to see this. So going through this example, I've got a variable first with a value of 0 and a variable second with a value of 1. And what I want to do is I want to swap the values. So the way that I do that is I create a temporary variable and I assign it to the value that is in the variable second. Then I can assign the variable second to the value that's in the variable first. So now I've got second now equals first. But I've held on to the value temp because now I'm going to assign it to first. First is now going to have the value that's in temp. So now what we'd expect is that first would be 1 and second would be 2. So let's try it out. Let's see, this is called reference. So when we try that out, first equals 1, second equals 0. That's exactly what we'd expect. So what happened is that every time we made an assignment, it copied the value. So what we're going to see is that when we do this, it's not going to behave the same way. So we've got cheese, and it's a list, and it's got the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I create a new variable called spam, and I want it to equal cheese, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then I want to change what's in the third place in cheese. So I want 3 to now equal hello. Then I want to print them out, see what we got. So what would you expect? I would expect that if they behaved the same, that cheese would be 1, 2, hello, 4, 5. And that spam would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see what happens. So it's not what we'd expect if it was copying values. So both of them are the same. Both of them are what we'd expect cheese to be. They've got hello in the third position. So why is this? And the reason why it is that when we create lists, when we said cheese equals this list, so I'll just copy it, what we actually said is, hey computer, I want you to allocate a place in your memory for this thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so normally we've got all these memory locations. Excuse me. We've got all these memory locations, and we said, cheese, I want you to equal this stuff. And so what it did is it actually said, okay, in order for me to hold all of that, I need to create a lot more spots for it. And if I want cheese to equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then cheese is actually going to equal 1 as a memory location. And then what's in 1 is going to be C. And then H. And then, oh, sorry, I'm doing this wrong. I'm spelling cheese. What I meant to say is it's going to equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But earlier when we said first equals 0, what it actually did is it said first actually is going to equal 6, and in 6 we're going to put the value of 0. So now whenever we look up first, it's going to give you 0. And whenever you're dealing with integers or characters or floating point numbers, any kind of these raw types, it does the copy for you automatically. But when you're dealing with lists, it doesn't do the copy for you automatically. So then when we said spam equals cheese, what it actually did is it said spam equals the value that's in cheese, which is 1. You see that? So spam equals 1. So if we go look in 1, when we try to look up something in spam, like if we wanted to say spam 0, then it's going to go to the first location that's in spam, and it's going to find 1. That means when we changed this to hello, then it changed it for both of them because both of them point to the reference of 1. And so let me try to explain this with like a library example. So let's say that you have a library and you've got two bookshelves, 1 and 2. And on bookshelf 1, you put your so first of all, we've got our bookshelf 1, and later on we're going to create another one. So we've got our bookshelf 1 and we put fantasy books on it, and it's got 5 books. Then later on we wanted to go create another bookshelf, bookshelf 2, and we want to put romance books on it, and we put 3 of those on there. So if we've got a card catalog, and if somebody wants to come to our library and look up a book and they said, hey, I want to find this book, well, we might have a card for it, and the location of that book that's on that card might be bookshelf 1, location 2. And they'll go to bookshelf 1, location 2, and they'll find the book that they're looking for. But let's say that when we created our romance bookshelf and then put those 3 books on there, we just copied the first 3 reference cards from the fantasy bookshelf. So the books 1, 2, and 3 of the fantasy bookshelf, we just created a photocopy of it and put it into the card catalog as 1, 2, and 3 of the romance section. So then somebody, when they come and they want to say they want to find a romance book, they might look at the card catalog, but the place, the location that they actually wanted to find is going to be pointing to the fantasy bookshelf. And that's not what you want. So obviously, you got to be really careful when you're going to be passing references around. You want to make sure that you create a copy of the reference so that when they actually go, when somebody wants to go find a romance book, they're directed to the right location. So how do we do that? There's actually a module called copy, and I'm going to call it import copy as C. We learned about modules already, so we know how to do that. So I'm going to import the copy module, and then when I create a new variable spam and I want to give it the value of cheese, not the reference of cheese, then I actually need to copy what is in there and then assign it to spam. So now when we do it, we should get the right thing, and we do. So you got to be really careful. And I know that it's a little confusing when you're working with values versus references, but whenever you're dealing with lists or tuples or dictionaries, you got to be really careful that you're copying the values when you are expecting them to get a new set. It's kind of tricky because when you're passing just integers or floating points to functions, they get a copy of what you did. But when you're passing lists or dictionaries or tuples, they don't. They just get the reference to all that information. So make sure that you're copying it over.